goes on, but you've written about the abrogation of the federalism in Cameroon. How did it go? Ahidjo is accused of having unilaterally, in a very dictatorial manner, engaged in this process. Where did anyway the House of Chiefs and the Southern Cameroon House of Assembly was no longer existing at the time these actions were taken? They were there. They observed this process through.
Yes,
were they helpless?
The House of Chiefs existed at the time. The House of Assembly existed at the time, and the Minister of Territorial Administration, Victor Ayisi Vodo, in his campaign for the abrogation of the federal structure, met and addressed the members of the West Cameroon House of Assembly and the members of the West Cameroon House of Chiefs, and saw the importance, the necessity of dismantling the federal system. They all accepted it. So for us nowadays to say, Ahidjo imposed that, I've heard people say Ahidjo was a dictator and therefore nobody could have opposed it. But again, Ahidjo, as politically clever as he was, the Constitution at the time, Article 2, said sovereignty lies with the people, the Cameroonian people. And this sovereignty could be exercised or shall be exercised either by the elected members of parliament or by a referendum. And we are talking of 1972. If the election had been done, if the motion had been tabled in the National House of Assembly, where it was an all CNU house, Cameroonians and especially Anglophones would have said, well, the parliamentarians had no choice. It was a one-party system. Ahidjo opted for a referendum. And the vast majority of Cameroonians, both Anglophones and Francophones, overwhelmingly voted to abrogate the federal system. Be it those who campaigned from Professor Bernard Folong, Mr. Ngoh Ekangaki, Estimona, Foncha, Mbile, Indeli, Elangwe, all of them campaigned for the abrogation of the federal system. Only a handful of UPC militants campaigned against it.
Yeah, but how do we explain that we say Ahidjo did it in a very dictatorial fashion, yet we have Anglophones who went campaigning for it to be abrogated? Were they not very comfortable with it? Because almost many persons will say, we were good as a federal structure, our educational system was preserved, our legal system was preserved, but is it not shocking to see that it is Anglophones who went?
His campaign and speeches are there. Genuine, authentic photographs of him campaigning are there. His audio recorded campaign speeches are there. So that is why I always insist that please base your facts, base your interpretation on authentic evidence. And that is what makes history.
Who campaigned where?
For instance, there were two campaign teams. One for the Southwest, one for the Northwest. It so happened that all those for the Northwest campaign team were politicians from the Northwest, and those from the Southwest were politicians from South. And Joa was put in the Southwest team initially, but he refused and moved up to move up to the northwest team. So you had Joa, Muna, Foncha, the principal one, campaigning in Junicom, in Bello, in Kumbu, in Bamenda, in Bengui. And the photographs are there. The recorded campaign speeches are there. While in the southern zone, you had Indeli, Mbile, Elangwe, and of course, the CDC and trade union campaign in support of it. The teachers wanted it because of the salary situation. So all of these Anglophones are complaining now. It is true that problems have emerged since 1972. But that doesn't mean that those Anglophones did not campaign for it.
Okay. Somebody is bringing us to this book, Cameroon, from 1884 to 2018. This is a book that actually compiles our history.
No,
there was one German Cameroon.
Before 1916, there was one German Cameroon. Between 1884 to 1916, there was nothing as Anglophone Cameroon, Francophone Cameroon, East Cameroon, or West Cameroon. No, it was just German Cameroon.
Okay. The person is asking, what is his effort to end the conflicts? And then he said, what was on the paper Ahijo presented to Foncha?
What Ahijo presented to Foncha in May 1961 was the draft constitution of the Federal Republic of Cameroon, which Ahijo presented to the delegation of Southern Cameroons and the delegation of the Republic of Cameroon in Fumban on the 17th of July 1961. So the delegates from Southern Cameroons, most of them were seeing that draft
for the first time.
Okay. And I was surprised to realize that they were saying it for the first time, because Dr. E.M.L. Indeli made it very clear. The records are there. His opening statement is there. Some of us are seeing this for the first time.
Okay, there's another question. Good evening in the studio. Wish to be clarified by the Prof about the complexity of not conducting the plebiscite as one for both British Northern Southern Cameroons. One decision of the Mina-Simon Agreement attached this territory to Nigeria. So was it logical for these territories to gain independence as one?
Initially, the politicians of British Northern Cameroons and the politicians of British Southern Cameroons work hand in hand. But in 1922, the British realized that a single administration of the British Cameroons would be very, very difficult for them, because the territory was disjointed. So it would be much easier for British for the UK to administer British Northern Cameroons as part of the northern provinces of Nigeria, and later on part of the northern region of Nigeria, and Southern Cameroons as part of the southern provinces of Nigeria, and later the eastern region of Nigeria, for administrative purposes. And the League of Nations authorized the British to do that. So the standard of political development between British Northern Cameroon and British Southern Cameroon was very different, to the extent that British Southern Cameroon was politically more mature, politically more advanced than British Northern Cameroons. Therefore, since the underlying British policy, which we have not talked on much, was that British Cameroons, both North and South, should achieve independence by joining Nigeria. So the British subtle policy all along, from 1922 right up to 1960, was to ensure that British Cameroons, that is both Northern Cameroons and Southern Cameroons, should achieve independence as part of Nigeria.
Okay.
And doing the plebiscite separately, and more importantly, counting the votes separately, would ensure that British Northern Cameroons, at least British Northern Cameroons, should achieve independence by joining Nigeria. This was especially so because Ahmadu Ahidjo was not really very excited with reunification. Initially, he was not. He wanted reunification to be with British Northern Cameroons for reasons we all know, the Muslim population and all not. If that was not possible, he wanted Southern Republic of Cameroon to join, to have both British Southern Cameroons and British Northern Cameroons. If these two options were not possible, reluctantly he will accept British Southern Cameroons. And that's what happened.
Okay. Cameroon, 1972. What would have caused Anglophones to go campaigning for the abrogation of 1972?
You see, that the first reason, which some Anglophones don't want to admit, there was extreme hatred among the politicians in West Cameroon. They did not love themselves. They did everything to run down each and every one of them, to the extent that all of them, I repeat, all of them, looked up to Ahmadu Ahidjo as their savior. All of them looked up to Ahmadu Ahidjo as their savior. I will give you one example. In February 1972, Augustin Ngoh wrote a confidential letter to Ahmadu Ahidjo, pleading with Ahmadu Ahidjo to come and save him, come and protect him, or else he will be killed. So which means that the first reason was the West Cameroon politicians wanted their political survival and even their physical survival. Secondly, the economic situation, the financial situation of West Cameroon was not the best. It was very bad. And this was aggravated by the fact that there was no constitutionally revenue formula inserted. It was not known. So the federal subvention, federal grant to West Cameroon came in a manner that was not consistent. Thirdly, of course, there was corruption. Be it CDC, Cameroon Bank, Powercam, Marketing Board, the West Cameroon Development Agency. And the financial situation got so bad that at one time, the Cameroon Bank, which was the bank of the West Cameroon government, could not pay civil servants their salaries. This should be made very clear. Could not pay civil servants their salaries. And Augustin Ngoh had to plead with Ahmadu Ahidjo to provide financial subvention to enable the West Cameroon government pay civil servants. And in one of Ahidjo's letters or replies to Augustin Ngoh, who was PM, he said, please keep your financial house in order. Keep your financial house in order. So with all this, and of course, the Nigerian Civil War from 1967 to 1970 was a factor that the Ahidjo government knew fully well, that there were some secessionist elements in West Cameroon who were prepared to exploit the Nigerian Civil War and get support from the breakaway eastern region of Nigeria. So it was in the interest of the Ahidjo and government to move swiftly with the abrogation of the federal system. And finally, of course, there was the discovery of oil. And this was made very clear in a confidential report, 1964, which says that the discovery of oil in the Victoria Bay, which enveloped the Indian era and whatnot, was such that would make West Cameroon as rich as Kuwait and will ensure full employment. So these are all factors which together prompted or led to the abrogation of the federal structure, especially when the East Cameroon or the French Cameroon politicians were very uncomfortable with the federal system, federal structure. And they regarded the federation only as a transitional measure which will ultimately lead to a unitary state. And that was what actually happened. So anybody who thinks that the abrogation of the federal system was a surprise, it was not. Right from 1961, the Ahidjo government was very, very uncomfortable with the federal system.
Lesson number one, my country people, Dr. Weti. Listen, whether or not you accept, my country people is a force to reckon with. Me, I agree. He's an enemy that is strong. So, Ambazonians will thank my country people for the wonderful job. Now, we'll go ahead.